Hello everyone, and welcome to another video from the Tiny Menagerie. This just might be one of the prettiest tetras available in the hobby. Blue Emperor tetras, also known as Kerri tetras or Royal tetras and even Regal tetras, are a small fish that sport a dazzling purple hue that's so rare in the hobby that they instantly stand out and have gained a small but dedicated following. But what are blue emperors like to keep, and what kind of setup do they need? Well, blue emperors hail from Brazil, where they are typically found in small, slow-flowing streams and tributaries that feed into the main rivers. They are a schooling species, often found swimming in huge shoals with hundreds of fish, often from various different but similar families, and this being the case, you will want to keep blue emperors in a group with at least 6 individuals, and as they show a marked sexual dimorphism, with males having the very purple coloration, while females are sporting an orange topside, it is at least relatively easy to make sure that you get an even number of males and females. Which you will want, because the boys put on their best colours when they are competing for the attention of the girls. In the home aquarium then, blue emperors are an interesting mix of being both brave and shy, and they certainly like to be with others. Kept in small numbers in a tank that's devoid of other species, even if they have plenty of hiding places, blues can be very shy and they will persistently stick to cover where possible. For this reason then, they do benefit from having dither fish in the tank with them, those species that is which are always out and about in the open and seem to have absolutely no sense at all that there might be predators around. Or, if you don't want to keep them with other species, then you'll need to keep them in a much larger group with at least 10 fish so that they have security in their own numbers. They're also equally comfortable over both pale and dark substrate, and also in the very brightest of lighting, but they look their best over a dark substrate with a moderately bright light. And when they are being brave, blue emperors are extremely personable fish. They are fast and active, dashing about the tank, often in a school, happily weaving in and out of hardscape, and generally excitedly getting into stuff like a bunch of kids in an activity centre. And they will very quickly learn as well that you are the supply of food, and they'll come to the front of the tank to beg whenever they see you. This personality, combined with their rather snub little faces and very beautiful patterning, means that they are one of the few fish that I think can proudly call themselves cute. But while their antics are extremely endearing to us, that rather cheeky nature does lead them to perhaps not being the best of community fish, and you will certainly want to be careful with who you house them with. When they are not breeding, they are fairly good citizens, as they school and swim about the tank, for the most part minding their own business. They are, however, a rather curious bunch, and they will occasionally chase other fish, especially if it's a species they haven't seen before, but this isn't usually persistent, and once the blues are satisfied that they know who this newcomer is, they will go back to doing their own thing and they'll leave the other fish alone. This has though given them a bit of an undeserved reputation for being bad fin nippers, and while males can get very feisty with each other when they're displaying, I have never known mine to nip the fins of other fish. Having said that though, I would not keep them with fish that have very soft tempting fins like guppies for example. I think the temptation would be too much. Obviously as well though, if you're trying to house them with very shy species, then all that chasing about the place will be quite intimidating, and it's likely to spook them into hiding, so best to only keep blue emperors with other brave species if at all possible. Bear in mind though, that's when they're not breeding. When they are breeding, males will set up small territories, usually guarding a particular plant or a bit of moss that they think a female might like the look of, and they will claim that bit of space as their own, and then they will chase off any other fish that is even vaguely similar in shape away from it. They're not vicious in their chasing, and I've never seen them do any damage to another fish, but if you have enough males that basically the whole tank is now someone's territory, then it can get quite fraught, and other fish will take to hiding in quiet spots in the tank just to escape from the harassment. This isn't constant. Like a lot of other fish, blue tetras generally breed for a few hours at a time, usually in the morning just after the lights go on, and so by mid-afternoon everything should have calmed back down again. And of course, the number one way to reduce that is to just have fewer males in the tank. The females are much more peaceful, though don't get me wrong, they will still squabble amongst themselves, just without quite so much chasing. This territorial behaviour then, alongside their general high activity levels, does mean that blue emperors need space. Their tank should be at least 80 centimetres in length for a group of 6, with plenty of plants or decorations and hardscape, anything really that can break up line of sight between the territories. And another point to note about blue emperors though, is that they are unfortunately not a particularly hardy species. They are sadly one that is rather prone to stress, and it has a tendency to get sick and die very quickly when something is wrong. Which is possibly one of the reasons why you don't really see them for sale as much as other very pretty tetras, like cardinals or neons for example, if they struggle with the shipping process and tend not to survive the quarantine. And one thing that can very easily lead to death by stress in them is poor water conditions or incorrect parameters, and so they really should only ever be introduced into a mature tank, one that has settled and shows absolutely no signs of nitrate levels getting out of control or spiking or anything like that. Also, blue emperors do fare better in slightly acidic to neutral waters, so a pH anywhere between 6 and 7, with a temperature somewhere between 24 and 28 degrees C. They're also not particularly fond of fast-flowing water neither, and they tend to take shelter in very fast flow, but a moderate to slow flow is acceptable, and none is perfectly fine. When it comes to feeding blue emperors, they are ravenous little feeders, and they will happily devour anything small enough to fit in their mouths. Though do bear in mind that because of that snub face shape, they do have quite small mouths, and so they tend to need quite little pellets rather than the standard-sized ones. It can also take them a couple of attempts to get used to completely new food. But once they do, they feed in that very pleasing, darting tetra fashion, zipping about the place, grabbing anything that looks like it's even remotely edible. They also take food mostly from the surface of the water, and they rarely go down to the substrate. They'll only really look there for food if they've seen something sinking down. And this being the case, they are not at all keen hunters of shrimp or anything like that. They will live very comfortably with a colony of Neocaridina or even Caridina, considering they like the same water conditions, and so long as you give the shrimplets somewhere to hide, enough will survive to keep the colony going. And so all in all then, blue emperor tetras are perhaps not the easiest of tetras to keep. They do need a mature, established tank with quite specific water parameters, and if they don't like their setup, then they will let you know by dying. But they are so cute, they are just worth all the effort it takes to keep them. A bit like having a kitten, really. Anywho though, I hope you've enjoyed this little video, all about blue emperor tetras. Happy fish keeping everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!